Hello and welcome to The Wire. I'm Arfa Khanum Sherwani. Late on Sunday night, well-known political activist and former JNU students leader Umar Khalid was arrested by Delhi police under stringent anti-terror law UAPA. Now, Umar Khalid has been sent to a 10 days police custody. With the arrest of Umar Khalid, questions are being raised on the intention and approach of Delhi police concerning the Delhi riots investigation. While Delhi police continues to target and jail young Muslim protesters who protested against CAA, no action so far has been taken against BJP leaders like Parvesh, Verma or Kapil Mishra, who were publicly seen inciting hatred and violence against the minorities. Joining me now is a very special guest, the former Mumbai Police Commissioner and one of the most respected police officers in India, Julio Ribeiro. Julio Ribeiro is 91-year-old and he has the experience of tackling Mumbai underworld as well as Khalistani terror in Punjab. And he has also written a letter to Delhi Police Commissioner S.N. Srivastav. He has asked him to ensure fair probe in Delhi riots case. Sir, thank you very much for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. Before I ask you my first question, let me read out parts of your letter that you wrote to the police commissioner. Dear Shri Srivastav, I write to you with a heavy heart. As a true patriot and a former proud member of the Indian Police Service, I appeal to you to ensure a fair probe into the 753 FIRs registered against peaceful protesters who rightly apprehend injustices born from bias and hate against a minority community. The Delhi police has taken action against peaceful protesters but deliberately failed to register cognizable offences against those who made hate speeches which triggered the riots in Northeast Delhi. It troubles sane and apolitical persons like me, while Kapil Mishra, Anurag Thakur and Parvesh Verma have not been arraigned before the courts of law, while deeply hurt Muslim women peacefully protesting against discriminations based on religion were lodged for months together in jail. The not so subtle attempt by the Delhi police to entangle true patriots like Harsh Mandar and Professor Purvanand in criminal cases is yet another matter for concern. We, the police forces in the land and its leadership drawn from the Indian Police Service, have a duty and obligation to respect the Constitution and the enacted laws, impartially, without regard to caste, creed and political affiliations. Kindly revisit the actions of the police under your command in Delhi to determine if they have been true to their oath taken at the time of their induction into service. Now, sir, my first question to you is related to Umar Khalid's arrest. We know that much before Umar Khalid was formally arrested, he was being interrogated and questioned by Delhi police several weeks ahead. Even the last day when he was finally arrested, he was questioned for more than 12 hours. How do you see the entire case of Umar Khalid and the charges on him by Delhi police?
I think that they have made a plan about these matters. Now look, Umar Khalid could have been arrested much earlier if they wanted. This law, I'm told, I have not read it, but I'm told that you have to lay the charge sheet in the court within 3 months. So they should have put the charge sheet on the 17th or thing before that. Now, if you make an arrest a few days earlier, then the ones who are under detention, they continue to be in detention for another 3 months. This is what I learned. Now, I'm not very conversant with this law because it was not there in my time. It is a new law. In my time, it was TADA, and they have abolished that law and brought this law. Now, this looks even more stringent than TADA, because TADA, the judges were very particular about ensuring that nobody remains in detention without trial for more than necessary. They gave you a month or so. And I remember as Commissioner of Police Thane, before I became Bombay Commissioner, I was in Thane, and we wanted to detain Datta Samant, the big trade union leader who was causing havoc, particularly in the industrial area of Thane. And the courts were very particular to ensure that this does not happen, that nobody is kept in custody without trial. Now here, if this law allows you to continue the detention of people arrested without trial, if you make another arrest, then it is a very simple way of using this loophole in the law to keep people in custody. I'm told that in the the Koregaon, Bhima Koregaon case, that this is what has been adopted, this method, which I think is very unfair. And the courts should have a look at this law. Yeah.
Right. So, Umar Khalid has been named as one of the key conspirators in Delhi riots case. He is someone who was one of the prominent faces of anti-CAA NRC protests. He has been implicated in this case. How do you look at this? Do you think that people who carried out and led the anti-CAA NRC protests now are being punished, persecuted for asking for their civil liberties, for their constitutionally guaranteed rights?
This is what I felt. That is why I wrote that letter, because see, in that conspiracy case, they have mentioned, I think, 18 people and all young PhD students. Many of them are women, and they are either Muslims or leftists, and that is what they are after. So I don't know whether they have any evidence. The police say that they have. So, but if they have evidence, let them bring it out. Let them not extend the detention of people endlessly. Let them bring out, lay the charge sheet, have the case tried fast. Let them prove that they have the evidence. Because if they do have the evidence, well, I would be interested in knowing what the evidence is. Because now we know nothing. We don't know why they have been arrested, except that they are leftists or they are Muslims. And this is not a very happy way of governing the country. This is something that would go, would trouble us, trouble people who feel for the country, who think that the rule of law should prevail. Anybody who commits an offense, whatever of whichever party or however big it may be, should be brought before the courts and not left to the whims of the rulers. I mean, that you just put anybody in jail and keep them there. This is not fair, and this is like some other country which is not aspiring to be as a leading country in the world.
So why do you think no action so far has been initiated against BJP leaders like Parvesh, Verma, Anurag Thakur or Kapil Mishra? You yourself have written in your letter saying that it troubles sane and apolitical persons like me, while Kapil Mishra, Anurag Thakur and Parvesh Verma have not been arraigned before the courts of law, while deeply hurt Muslim women peacefully protesting against discriminations based on religion were lodged for months together in jail. And this is despite the fact that the speeches were made publicly and speeches were shared not just on social media that time of the year when the riots erupted, but even much after now, post the arrest of Umar Khalid, people are sharing these speeches in abundance, even particular parts which are clearly inciting hatred and violence. What do you think is keeping the police force, the Delhi police, keeping it from doing it?
Yes, leading up to these Northeast Delhi riots, we had these very hateful speeches, I mean, full of hate, and I've heard them myself on television, and nobody can deny that these are the people who said this. And I'm really surprised that the Delhi police have not been able to even register a case against them. I was just thinking, like they have done in the case of that girl, Ria Chakravarti, they registered a case in Bihar and then finally got it to the Supreme Court. Why doesn't somebody not do it like in that same manner, register it in some other state which is more amenable to, I mean, things are done according to party in power. I'm surprised about that. I've not worked under a regime which ensures that if you are in the party in power or a supporter of that party in power, then you can get off doing anything you like. It's this is not what we expected this country to be.
And one of the people that you've underlined in your letter, Kapil Mishra, he has made a statement today. He has said that Umar Khalid should be hanged. And he is the person just 24 hours just before the riots were erupted. He had given that fiery speech, that violent speech, which said, हम डोनाल्ड ट्रंप का इंतजार कर रहे हैं, उनके जाने का इंतजार कर रहे हैं, अगर दिल्ली पुलिस ने इनको नहीं हटाया तो हम हटाएंगे. That speech, and I would want my producer to play that part of the speech for my audience. And now, sir, tell me that where do these people get so much of the courage from, the audacity for someone like Kapil Mishra to say that Umar Khalid should be hanged? Do you think it's the patronage by his political party or the supporters in general, or he does not really fear the law?
He does not fear the law, is certain, because formally before the party came in power, even in the time when Mr. Vajpayee was ruling the country, was the prime minister, these people, nobody made such statements or speeches of this type. How is it that they have got so much license to make speeches of this type now? So they are not testing the waters. They're quite sure that the waters are still for them and very favorable for their navigation. So I think that it is quite obvious that they don't bother about the law.
Right. There is a part in your letter where you say that minorities rightly apprehend the biases in the police force and hate against a minority community. You think the police force maybe, or some of the policemen may be biased towards religious minorities, especially the Muslims?
I don't think I made that statement in my speech, in my letter. Perhaps you have read it wrong.
You said that the police has taken action against the peaceful protesters who rightly apprehend injustices born from bias and hate against a minority community.
Yeah, but I didn't say that the police, well, actually the police come from the public and they will follow the orders of their leader, that is the commissioner or the director general of police, whichever it is. And if the man at the top makes it clear that he is going to follow the law and not anything except the law and the constitution, his followers, the rank and file, will follow him. They will not dare to go against his wishes. And I've seen that throughout my service. For example, in Mumbai, when I was commissioner, we had to arrest all the Shiv Sena leaders, the ones at the second or third rank. We got them all arrested in one day, in one fell swoop. They carried it out. People used to say that they are very much pro-Shiv Sena. They came from that stock, so it was quite likely that they had sympathies for the Sena, the Marathi Manus and all that. But then here, it so happened that there is no Shiv Sena, but there are other parties. There is the BJP, there is Hindutva, there is a concept, ideological concept. And they don't really understand this concept, but they still will have a little sympathy. But that can be controlled by the man at the top. When he gives an order, the policeman will carry it out. So it is very important to have people who are absolutely neutral, who know their responsibilities and their duties as laid down by the Constitution. They know the law, they have to follow that. And if they do that, there should be no problem at all. But unfortunately, I don't know, the things are pretty bad. In my own city of Mumbai, where we have the Mohalla committees working in the slum areas, we find our workers in the slum areas say that they have never seen so much hate. They had actually addressed that hate in the beginning, or the latent hate. And they had in fact, they had succeeded in bringing people together. But now they say it is a very difficult proposition. I have a young friend, now he's no longer young, he must be around 70, because I am forgetting my own age. So this gentleman I've known for 50 years from Pune, and he runs an NGO called Sarad, I mean the borders. And in fact, he came to Punjab to see why there was this separatist uh, movement going called the Khalistan movement. He came there to meet me at that time when I was the DGP there. And he has given shelter to so many orphans from J&K, from the valley in Pune. And he phoned me saying that he has never seen this type of hate. And I'm very sorry to know that in my country, hate is being you know, nurtured.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
very, very, very disturbing to a person like me.
Like you rightly said that the police also comes from the public, and we saw during Delhi riots that policemen, they actively dismantled CCTV cameras so that they could erase all evidences of them having participated in the riots. We saw videos which were played out on BBC. There were other videos which were played by other audiovisual journalists where some of the policemen actually became part of the rioting crowd. Do you think that this is also kind of symptomatic of the people, the society that we've become? Because the more the communal our society is, the more communal the police force would be. And this is the reflection of it also you see in the way this whole riots investigation is progressing.
You know, I really wonder where we are heading to, because we have seen our neighbor on the west. If we are going to become like that, I'm sorry for my country. How can we become a country like Pakistan? I mean, it's a yellow colored one, a green colored one. I mean, it's ridiculous. They should understand that. And how is it going to help us to advance? It is not. Today in Mumbai, there is an NGO which I am a part of where we work with young people, students from all over the city, and we make it a point to drill into them that, look, these are two big evils. Corruption is a big evil, and so is communalism. Now, these two evils have to be fought. They have to be fought by younger people, the younger generation, because if they don't fight it, then I'm sure that this country will never take its place at the head of the table, and it will have to remain where it is now. I mean, you know, aspiring, but always aspiring. But you can't aspire in this manner. You have to tell me today if there is a problem with China. We are seeing this problem escalating. I mean, if it escalates to that extent that there are hostilities, what do we do? I mean, with 15% of the population, you have alienated in this manner. I think it's a very dangerous proposition. And I don't know whether the thinkers, the think tank in the government realize or even pay any attention to this aspect. I am very worried.
Right. So we're talking about communal bias, but if we highlight this, you've also written in your letter that the not so subtle attempt by the Delhi police to entangle true patriots like Harsh Mandar and Professor Purvanand in criminal cases another matter of concern. So when we are talking about communal bias, the police can turn around and say that Harsh Mandar and Apurvanand and Pinjatod activists like Devangna and the other woman, Natasha, they are not Muslims, but they have also been implicated. They are also being charged. So they will say that we do not have the communal bias. We are finding people whoever is they found evidence against.
But I think the leftists also are being put in that. Anybody with left incline is also put in the same basket or in a different basket, which is almost as they would like to do this. I mean, after all, people can have their own feelings or requirements. There are people who feel very sorry for the suppressed, and it's a natural human feeling. And I think that they have to make concessions for such people. But as long as they do not cross any line, they do not actually incite people to violence. So they do not, they deplore what is happening. What is the, I mean, unless you give this kind of letting off steam chance to people who feel differently. I think that if you suppress these kind of feelings, it becomes worse. You can't put that in a, if you, in a straitjacket. So I really feel that government should think about these things.
So, sir, the kind of communal politics that we see, that they are polarizing the entire society on the lines of religion so that they can be in power for the next 50 years. They have said that we want to be and we will be in power for the next 50 years. So you cannot be in power without dividing people on caste or religious lines. For now, at least the religion side is working for them. There is also a theory that's going around that it is not just the Muslims, but so-called friends of Muslims will also be punished for protesting against the government. This is also an arrogance of a government that has been now elected back to power. So we did not see this face of the Modi government in the first 5 years, but only this 1 year when they thought that the policies had validation, they got the validation from the voters.
See, actually, they got a lot of poor people's votes, which they never had earlier. The poor people, they always went on economic problems, that mattered to them most. Do they get roti, kapda, and makan? So that was addressed, which was very clever. And I think that even I was happy that the government is doing something for the poor. And they did it. But now I suppose they don't have money also to carry on constructing so many houses in the villages and all those things. So, but the government did do some good work in their first term. But in this term, they seem to be trying to consolidate their power on basis of dividing people on religious lines. And it's even in the first phase, there were so many lynchings, which of course is very inhuman. And it was very cleverly done. I must say that is why I said not so subtle. That is what I meant by that.
Right. So coming back to the Delhi violence investigation, it'll be good for our viewers to know that if you look at just the sheer numbers, and it doesn't really feel so good that we are talking about religious identities of the victims, but such is the nature of communal violence that is the foundation of communal violence. The very reason is religion. So the communal violence that led to about 53 people, the death of 53 people, 40 of the 53 people, 52 civilians, one policeman, were Muslims. And there was an affidavit that was filed by Delhi police to the Delhi High Court, and it recorded the disproportionate damage to property and places of worship suffered by Muslims in what was clearly a targeted violence. Now, please tell me, if you just look at the facts, and we do not really include what we think of the police and what our opinion is about the Delhi police or the police officers working in this force, I don't understand that the police investigation, it claims riots were the result of a conspiracy by Muslim activists and leaders and others involved in the protests. How will they be able to convince the judges, the court, and ordinary people that when the disproportionate damage of property and people was of Muslims, why were they killing themselves? Were they attacking their own properties?
this is something that they have to prove in the court of law, and that is why they are reluctant to bring up those cases in the court of law, because perhaps they know that this is not going to hold. And this is where that is the reason why basically people are so surprised that this kind of thing is this kind of investigation is being done. So let us, if they say, like they are saying, that it is correct what they have done, let it be proved in a court of law. Let them bring the evidence. Let us see what the evidence is. We don't know what the evidence is. Now, for example, the general feeling that their theory that this was done to embarrass the government during Mr. Trump's visit. Now, Mr. Trump himself, I don't know when he finally decided to come and how much time the people had to whip up that type of agitation or feelings against him. I wouldn't think that we were so bothered about, they would be so bothered about embarrassing the government at that time. They would more You know, things like were happening in the JNU and in Jamia Millia. That was what was attracting people's attention, not this, not Mr. Trump's visit, but I don't know. Uh, what exactly they meant by that. They should prove it. If they prove it, fair enough. I mean, if the proof evidence is very strong, we will also have to accept it. There's no doubt about that. So the main thing is to bring the case before the court and prove the point. Because I mean, a person like me, I am in this way quite neutral. If somebody commits an offense, well, they have committed an offense. But I can't imagine how some of the people they have named would actually conspire to do a thing like that. I don't
But
know.
where has this neutrality disappeared in case of Kapil Mishra, Parvesh Verma, and Pravesh Verma and Anurag Thakur? Why do you think? My pointed question to you is, why do you think they are not being investigated? What is the reason?
Well, I don't think it's very far to conjure what is the reason. When you are under one government, you are not going to catch hold of them. So one is in fact a member of the cabinet. It's not going to be easy for the police to pounce on a member of the cabinet. I've not seen even in previous years anyone doing that. So you have some sort of, uh, license once you are in government or they are supporting the government, which is not a good thing. Uh, I never felt like that earlier. Not even when the BJP was in power earlier also. I never thought that such a thing is even possible. But now things are becoming very more clear. Yes,
So
that is.
you've always maintained that you are a proud member of Indian Police and IPS. The record of Delhi Police see in the last few decades, it has been a very professional police force. What do you think is the reason that it has gone so deep into this hole where it's embarrassing itself? Do you think it's public pressure? Do you think it's communalism within the police force? Do you think it's the pressure from the media? What exactly, can you point this out, where this pressure is coming from? Because so far, the record of Delhi Police has been of a very professional force.
I think not only Delhi police, police across the country. I mean, there has always been some, like as in the public, similarly in the police force which comes from the public, there's always that latent feeling of animosity against a community, but not to that, it is not really out in the open, but there would be some feeling. But then by training, by their own oaths that they have taken to the constitution, these things are papered over. I mean, you don't think about such matters. You act according to the law. And all my life, which I've been spent 36 years, I've seen the police doing that. The people at the top in particular are all people who do not take these matters into consideration. Caste, creed. We don't have only different religions, but we have different castes also. This is nowhere else in the world. And yet, even those caste animosities are quite troublesome. So, and you know, in our country, even elections are fought on basis of caste. So we have to abjure all these weaknesses and suppress them or get rid of them. Getting rid might not be so easy, but it can certainly be inculcated in the younger minds that look, this is keeping us backward. And if we want to go forward, like everybody is told, that what Mr. Modi ji himself says, sabke saath, sabke vikas, and now he said sabke vishwas also. So that vishwas is being greatly assailed. There's a constant attack on vishwas. So I think that he is a leader who's accepted quite widely across the nation. I know a lot of people who will follow him even if anything else doesn't matter. So I think that a person like him should really is capable of setting it right, and he should do it if he's a statesman, if he thinks about the good of the country. I think that wiser counsels should prevail, and they must prevail at some time.
Right. So besides being a legendary policeman, police officer, you've also been a very conscientious citizen who've always spoken on matters where one's conscience calls. So what I'm trying to ask you is that when the police force, it loses objectivity, it loses neutrality, it shows its biases. Do you think the credibility of the police in the eye of general public, and especially the religious minorities, if that credibility is eroded, what kind of social impact do you see in the society? Because if one of the key institutions that includes democratic institutions, that includes the police force also, if the credibility is eroded, what the loss of faith that the minorities will have, what kind of impact do you think it will have on the society?
I'll give you my own experience about this. When I returned from Romania, I was there for 4 years. I came back in the beginning of 94, almost at the end of 93. Soon after Christmas, I returned, say, just before the New Year. So you may say from 94. And I found that the Muslim community was totally alienated because of the 92-93 riots. And I had a talk with some of my friends and even some police officers, etc. And fortunately, the police commissioner in those days was a gentleman called Satish Sani, who is a very, thinking policeman. And the chief minister was Mr. Sharad Pawar. And I think Sharad Pawar, I didn't know about it till Satish told me that, look, he had been trying to approach the Muslim community because he found that 15% of the population of the city was alienated. How do you govern a city even with 15% of the people alienated? It is not easy. And the police found it very difficult because much of the evidence, much of the information and things about crime, criminals used to come because the Muslims, like the Dalits and the Adivasis, they are the poorer section, and they were always happy to be friendly with the police. In return, they gave them information, etc., about criminal activities. So it was difficult for the police commissioner, and he told me that because incidentally we live in the same building, and so we I decided to spend the rest of my days or whatever it was in trying to bring the communities together in the city. And there's a lady called Sushobha Barve, you must have heard about her in J&K, she works there. And she was in Bombay at that time and Mumbai. And we went and met the police commissioner, and he actually welcomed us. And he said, my goodness, you are the answer to my prayers. And he said, let us work for communal harmony. And we wanted the police to be the third partner, not only the Hindus and Muslims in the slum areas where the people kill and get killed. The people who instigate them, they don't get killed, neither do they kill, I agree. But the point is that how do we get them together? It was a very difficult proposition. Because first we talked to the Muslims and we had marathon sessions with them. They were so angry that they were saying, don't get involved in this. They're telling me, Mr. Ribeiro, we have faith in you, but we don't have faith in the police. I said, look, here is the police commissioner. I brought him along with me and he will talk to you. And then finally we talked to the Muslim women. Many of them were in Parda, so only Satish and I could go there. They said nobody else, so we said fine. The two of us went and talked to them, and only after that, another 2 or 3 hours with the listening to the ladies, that we finally broke the ice. And we started this Mohalla committee movement, which brought, and we did succeed to a very large extent, where a tripartite, that is the Hindu, the Muslims and the police, make them a part of that. In fact, the police were also...
30 years since then, the situation looks even far more serious, far more grim. So I'm asking you, what will you say now to the policemen, the police officers who are serving the nation now, that whether they should be reporting to their political masters or the Constitution of India or the people of India, who are who pay for their salaries, who I think they should be finally accountable to.
You see, what the policemen at that level, what they think about only is their transfers and their postings. And these gentlemen have a great say in that. And they can manage to go to the politician and get their transfers, which didn't happen in my time. Of course, it was attempted, but it failed. And you stuck by your guns, and you got the better of them. But now it is, I feel, all the contrary is happening. And this is a thing that the public should think about it. Not, and you talk about police reforms. Now, what is reforms? It's only depoliticizing the police. That is the main reform. How do you depolitize it? And ensure that they act according to the law and not according to the whims of the political masters. That is the crux of police reforms. I personally have met all the chief ministers about 20 years ago, met each one of them and talked to them about it at that time. Anybody in power would say, no, we don't require this reform. Whereas the opposition, who then came in power, they wanted it. But now, of course, they don't want. They want to control the police, ensure that their own power is consolidated through the medium of the police. With the police is not supposed to get involved in politics. I remember.
I hope we find some more policemen, some more police officers like you who keep their conscience alive all the time. I think that's the only hope that we can have to put it again back together. Thank you very much, Mr. Ribeiro.
To receive instant updates on all videos from The Wire, click the subscribe button and hit the bell icon. Pay to support independent journalism. Click the link in the description and choose the amount you want to pay.